who have enchained two masterpieces, such as you have done with Mr. Turner and then Peterloo. So I really want to congratulate you for this in your career, because you have been perfectioning the technique and you have robust storytelling, which is extraordinary. It's about two instantaneous classics, and in the case of Peterloo, a production that opens parallelisms with what's happening now at current times. There's no question yet. So, in some interview, I read that you would work on Hollywood under certain premises which were impossible to have at that time. Some years have gone by, and the mediatic empire of Amazon has favored the financing of Peterloo. It wouldn't be strange that in a few years Amazon will buy one of the majors of Hollywood. And now the question: do you think then that your cinema is going to be benefited in order to develop some projects with more budget, as it has happened with Peterloo? So do you think that in the future you will benefit from more budget? This is going to be consecutive, so you have to wait for me after.
Sure.
Okay.
Well, speaking as a European, let's get rid of this completely. Speaking as a European filmmaker, speaking as a member of what I would call world cinema. But when I say that, I mean, there is world cinema and there is Hollywood. Yeah. Really, Hollywood's got nothing to do with what I do, and I'm not really concerned about Hollywood. I don't know whether I misunderstood something that you said in your question, but making a Hollywood movie has never been an issue for me at all. It so happens that for this movie, for Peterloo, Amazon Studios have chosen to back the movie, and incidentally they did so with complete integrity. They did not interfere, they left us completely to our own devices, and they let me do exactly what I wanted to do, including the final cut and everything. Okay. You may anticipate, as you are, what is going to happen in Hollywood in the future. I don't care what happens to Hollywood in the future. All I'm concerned about is that we, European filmmakers, can continue to make films with the freedom that we need to have to make our films. And besides, I think any prediction that you might make about what's going to happen in the future in Hollywood or anywhere else is merely a possibility, because you just cannot tell what's going to happen in the future. So that's all I have to say about it. Vale. So I don't really think it's an issue, basically. Sorry.
Como cineasta europeo, como miembro de lo que yo considero que es el cinema internacional, porque claro, tienes que distinguir entre lo que es el cine internacional y lo que es Hollywood, eso lo entiendes, ¿no? Yo nunca he tenido ningún problema, ninguna dificultad en hacer una película tipo Hollywood, pero no ha sido el caso, no ha sido mi intención. En el caso de esta película, La masacre de Peterloo, tuvimos la suerte de que Amazon Studios decidió respaldar totalmente la película al completo, en su integridad, en su conjunto, incluyendo la escena final, y además sin ningún tipo de interferencia ni opinión, ni diciendo lo que había que hacer, ¿no? Tú a lo mejor puedes pensar en anticipar el futuro o tratar de predecir el futuro, pero a mí eso me importa un comino. A mí lo importante es que nosotros como cineastas podamos seguir utilizando nuestra libertad para hacer las películas como hemos hecho hasta ahora, y sí que es verdad que hay gente que puede hacer predicciones de cómo será el futuro, pero en realidad eso es solamente hablar de una especulación, de una posibilidad, porque a menos que tengas una bola de cristal, nadie sabe lo que va a pasar en el futuro.
Good morning, Mr. Leigh. How are you?
Leigh.
Leigh. How are you? Yo siempre empiezo las entrevistas preguntando lo mismo. ¿Por qué haces cine?
He always starts the interviews asking the same. Why do you make movies?
Why do I make movies? I'm very lucky, like you are, to have been born at a time of the movies. you know. I grew up watching movies. I am passionate about movies. I sat in the cinema as a kid looking at films, and I used to sit there as a small child thinking, wouldn't it be great if you could have a film where the characters in the film were like real people, not just like characters in films. So I've always been driven to want to take the world, the real world, and tell stories about it.
Pues como tú, tuve la suerte de nacer en una época en la que el cine ya existía y crecí viendo películas de cine. Recuerdo estar en el cine de niño, en la oscuridad, pensando, ¿no sería fantástico poder hacer una película en la que los personajes fueran reales? Y eso es lo que me motivó, el coger la realidad y plasmarla en una película.
So I'm driven to make films because it's a wonderful medium, and it is actually a great way of capturing the world and sharing it with people.
Bueno, pues porque es un medio fantástico y es una manera fantástica de captar el mundo y compartirlo con la gente.
Apart from the fact that as an artist, the actual skills of filmmaking, the actual the technology of filmmaking, the activity of filmmaking, the communication of filmmaking and all the rest of it, and the quality of film and all of those things are all part of what is exciting. You know, just as a painter is excited by paint, and the novelist by words, you know, although words and visual things are all part of what, for me, it's all about.
Aparte que como artista, todo lo que son las habilidades necesarias para hacer cine, la tecnología, la misma actividad de hacerlo, la comunicación, lo encuentro muy emocionante, igual que un pintor encuentra emocionante pintar y un novelista encuentra emocionante escribir.
Bienvenido.
Welcome.
Quería preguntarle lo siguiente. Sus películas hablan sobre la humanidad, sobre nuestro comportamiento en sociedad, demasiadas veces erróneo y que en definitiva conducen a que nos acabemos haciendo daño entre nosotros. Creo que alguien que es capaz de transmitir esto a través del cine tiene una inteligencia emocional muy grande. ¿Cree que si se trabajara bien la inteligencia emocional en las escuelas evitaríamos muchos problemas futuros?
So your movies talk about humanity and human behavior, which includes many mistakes. So I consider you a highly intelligent person from an emotional perspective. You have a lot of emotional intelligence, in my opinion. So do you think that in the schools, people or teachers were able to work emotional intelligence with children, many conflicts could be avoided?
Yes, I do think that. I think that, your question raises a whole lot of questions about education and how education should be and how education functions.
Sí, totalmente de acuerdo. Y además tu pregunta plantea muchos interrogantes sobre otro tipo de interrogantes, ¿no? Sobre todo la educación y cómo debería plantearse la educación.
I think, personally, and I speak not only as somebody who went through a not particularly good education system, but I'm also a parent. I've had children, my sons, through school. I think that art should be the core subject in education. That all subjects should be taught through art and music and drama, and that everything else, including mathematics and everything else, should come out of the creative experience. Not the creative experience shouldn't be marginalised and sometimes ostracised as being less important than the academic subjects. And I think if what you're talking about is emotional education, I think that is the key to it, basically.
Creo personalmente, y no solo personalmente, sino también como padre de niños que han asistido a la escuela, que el arte, la música y el teatro deberían ser las asignaturas fundamentales. Incluso las matemáticas deberían partir de una experiencia creativa y no ser unas asignaturas menos importantes, aisladas, que es lo que se hace muchas veces. Creo también, que has dicho, la inteligencia emocional, que debería ser clave en las escuelas.
Of course, there are many other things about it. You know, co-education is important, boys and girls. Teaching about relationships, teaching about sex, teaching about different kinds of sexuality, sexual orientation, all of these things that should be shared and should be understood by children, so that from an early age, so that we make a better, more tolerant and emotionally mature society.
También la coeducación, la educación de niños y niñas juntos en las aulas, las relaciones, el sexo, la orientación sexual desde los años muy tempranos deberían compartirse y entenderse bien, de manera que creemos una sociedad más tolerante desde el principio.
La primera película que vio usted fue Secretos y Mentiras.
The first movie he saw was Secrets and Lies by you.
Después recuperé Indefenso y las películas anteriores en vídeo, en VHS en aquella época y tal.
And then he went back to see other movies.
Siempre lo relacioné con aquello que decía Rossellini, que el cine tiene que hablar de las personas y sobre todo transmitir humanidad.
And he always related your movies to what Rossellini said, that movies have to talk about people and to talk about humanity.
Entonces, usted siempre habla de las personas más desfavorecidas, de sus problemas y sobre todo en contraposición con el poder establecido y sus normas.
You always talk about the working class, their problems, as opposed to the established power and the rules.
¿Cómo se originan estas historias? ¿A partir de los personajes, a partir de un conflicto?
So
Esto es lo que me interesa.
Do these stories come from? From specific characters, from a specific conflict? This is what he's interested in.
It's a very difficult question to answer, because most of what you see in my films is fiction, and we have created it. But of course, in creating fiction, as with any creators of drama or literature or movies, you create fiction drawn from your experience of the world and of your experience of life and people, but there's not a great deal in my films that is actually literally a specific depiction of particular experiences, other than in the 3 historical films that I've made, but that's not what you're talking about. So that's all I can say, really. I'm sorry.
Es una pregunta muy difícil, porque la mayoría de mis películas tratan de ficción, y cuando estás haciendo ficción pues la creas a partir de una experiencia concreta que has tenido en el mundo, ¿no? Pero es como una descripción muy específica o literal de algo que ha sucedido, aunque no es este el caso de las 3 películas históricas en las que él ha participado, que supone que la pregunta no va por ahí, no va por las preguntas históricas. Cuando hablas de la realidad de la clase trabajadora, no te estás refiriendo a estas películas.
Bueno, en el caso de Peterloo también está hablando de las clases trabajadoras.
Well, in the case of Peterloo, yes, you also talk about the working class.
Yes.
Contra el poder desestablecido.
Against the established.
Yes.
Y sobre todo desde la complejidad digamos, de las dos formas de verlo, tanto the working class and the power.
From the complexity of the 2 perspectives, the one of the working class and the one of the ruling power.
Of course. And you will find class conflict in many of my films, usually between working class and middle class people, or class differences, if you like. But you see, in the end, what I'm concerned to do is to tell stories about people of all shapes and sizes. Working class people, middle class people, professional people, unemployed people, men, women, successful people, unsuccessful people, and also people with real power and people with no power at all. Everybody is important and everybody is interesting as far as I'm concerned. And in and amongst all of that are many studies of working class life.
Pues sí, muchas películas tratan del conflicto entre clases, ¿no? La clase trabajadora sobre todo y la clase media. Pero a mí lo que me preocupa son las historias que suceden a las personas. Personas de todos los tamaños, estaturas y clases. Trabajadores, no trabajadores, desempleados, hombres, mujeres, personas de éxito profesional, no éxito profesional. Todo el mundo es importante y todo el mundo puede ser interesante.
Para mí, Peterloo es una lección magistral de historia a través de la pantalla grande, y quería preguntarle qué opinaría de la utilización del cine en las aulas como... ¿De la utilización del cine en las aulas como método de enseñanza. Y bueno, le quería poner un ejemplo que no voy a transcribir evidentemente en la entrevista, pero por ejemplo yo trabajo en un ayuntamiento y yo cogí el programa del Barcelona Film Festival y se lo envié pues, a la alcaldesa, se lo envié a la concejal de educación y se lo envié a la coordinadora técnica de educación, diciendo que era una oportunidad perfecta para las escuelas del municipio. Políticamente no me contestó nadie. Y la coordinadora técnica de educación me vino a decir que las actividades de las escuelas estaban cerradas y que no podía hacer nada, que eran ellas las que decidían, pero ni siquiera llegó la información a las escuelas, ¿no? Y pensé, estamos muy mal como sociedad.
He thinks that your movie it's a keynote great lesson of history, and he thinks it would be very important to introduce cinema in the schools in order to learn about history and to extract some lessons from it. But he works at the municipal level, and he sent a letter to the mayor, to the education representative, etc., to school, and they were not interested in this. Not in your movie, but not in the idea of bringing the schools to. So what do you think about this? Because he thinks an opportunity has been missed.
I think an opportunity has been missed. But then you see, I think, going to see films as part of your education in school, looking at films, looking at movies in the educational context seems to me as important as looking at art or music or anything else, of course. And of course, cinema should be on the curriculum of all education. Of course it should. It's the most important 20th century, 19th, 20th, 21st century art form. So I think they are living in the past, the people that you've written to, and they should wise up and get into the present, really.
Pues sí, se ha perdido una oportunidad muy interesante, porque el hecho de visualizar una película en el contexto escolar es tan importante como ir a ver un museo o escuchar música o cualquier otra representación del arte, ¿no? El cine debería formar parte del currículum escolar, tanto si es del siglo XIX, XX como XXI, y el hecho de no hacerlo significa que están estancados en el pasado y deberían actualizarse.
Mr. Turner and Peterloo son películas que abarcan el primer tercio del siglo XIX. A nivel cromático, a nivel tono, a nivel luz, son muy diferentes, porque una va sobre un pintor que buscaba la luz y los puntos, los detalles de la luz. Y Peterloo es una película más oscura, más recogida, pero sobre todo en la última secuencia de la película, que es la más espectacular, la más, supongo, difícil de rodar, a mí me recordaba a la pintura de Delacroix, pintor francés. ¿Usted estaba pensando cuando preparaba la película en algún pintor en mente, o fue una construcción a nivel de tono, de procesos con el director, con el cinematógrafo?
So the three period movies are around the first third of the 19th century, and he has observed some chromatic characteristics in the movies. In Mr. Drake was a painter searching for light, but maybe Peterloo is a more intimate, obscure movie. The last take of the movie made him think of Delacroix. What are you thinking about this painter?
Well, I think it's interesting. just a detail, first of all, that the first film I made is not in the first part, it's in the last part of the 19th century. Topsy Turvy was set in the 1880s, not in the early part of the century. But that's a detail.
Primero que Topsy Turvy se hizo en 1800, ambientada en 1880, ¿eh? No, en el primer tercio.
Mr. Turner y Peterloo.
Ah, es que has dicho 3 películas.
No, he dicho...
Oh, sorry, I thought you said 3 films.
Mr. Turner y Peterloo de la primera parte del...
But the question is about Delacroix.
Pero la pregunta va de Delacroix.
Todd Badbury es finales del...
Yeah, whereas with Mr. Turner we referenced Turner's paintings consciously in the visual style of the film. In this film, in Peterloo, we did not reference directly any particular painter. Some people think when you first see Nellie, the mother in her kitchen, they think that there's a reference to Vermeer. It isn't, it's just, we weren't thinking about that at all, we were just thinking about this woman in her kitchen. We've not really thought consciously about Delacroix, although, like many things, he's there in our subconscious, our cultural DNA, if you like to call it that. But we haven't referenced anything in particular, and certainly not Delacroix.
Mr. Turner en la película sí que están presentes sus cuadros, evidentemente, pero en Peterloo, la tragedia de Peterloo, no estamos pensando en ningún pintor. Hay un momento en que Nellie, la madre, está en la cocina y uno puede pensar en un cuadro de Vermeer, pero no era la intención, ni tampoco Delacroix. Sí que de manera inconsciente está en nuestro ADN cultural, pero no era la intención.
Porque cuando trabaja con el cinematógrafo, él buscaba una paleta de tonos oscuros con el color que tienen la guardia y la caballería.
Were you trying to to make a contrast between the dark tonalities, no, of the dresses and the people with the colorful costumes of the horse riding?
No, those things look after themselves. That is what people wore, though, soldiers, until the First World War. The received idea among military experts is that soldiers should be brightly coloured. Then they realised that, of course, is counterproductive. And from the First World War onwards, people wore colours that would camouflage. But in that period, people wore brightly coloured costumes. The people wore in the civilian clothes were usually darker or drabber colours because they didn't have to wash them so much. It's all practical. It's not a visual or aesthetic or dramatic or cinematic consideration. It's what people wore.
Sí, es una cuestión práctica y es lo que llevaba la gente, ¿no? Hasta la Primera Guerra Mundial sí que los soldados se iban vestidos con ropas muy brillantes, llamativas, pero luego por cuestiones prácticas se dieron cuenta que era mejor que fueran colores que les sirvieran de camuflaje, ¿no? Los civiles aparecen vestidos con ropa más bien oscura y aburrida, pero es porque no podían lavarla tan a menudo, ¿no?
En Peterloo, al principio de la película, aparece la batalla de Waterloo y aparece el soldado superviviente que luego vuelve a su casa y al final de la película resulta abatido. Y ahí explico en el coloquio que realmente ese soldado que podría representar en la vida real murió 2 semanas después de los hechos. Y quisiera preguntarle si esa escena en concreto, la del final de la película, en la que muere, si viene a ser una especie de metáfora en el sentido de que aquel soldado que ha luchado por su país es el propio país el que lo acaba matando por parte de quien en teoría viene a representar la institución de la justicia, ¿no? Y de la legalidad.
Okay, so he's talking about Joe, the soldier who was in Waterloo, and he comes back to Peterloo, and you talked yesterday about a real person who was injured and died, and he says that you inspired this character on that person who died 2 weeks after fighting. And the question is, exactamente la pregunta es
si ese final es para
the movie reflects like a metaphor of a soldier who has fought for his country and then comes back to his home place and it's killed then by...
Absolutely.
Eso es.
This requires no further explanation. That's what it's about.
Más explicaciones es lo que sucede.
Yeah, of course.
Easy question. ¿Por qué no utiliza habitualmente en su cine el flashback?
Why don't you use flashback in your movies?
Well, I do. I mean, Career Girls, it consists entirely of flashbacks. Have you ever seen Career Girls?
Career Girls es todo flashbacks. ¿Lo has visto?
Yeah, it's the exception. It's the exception.
Yeah, it is the exception. Somebody asked me the other last week in America why we don't start with the massacre and flash back to all the build-up to it. That would not seem to me a natural way to tell the story, because actually when you're watching the film, Peterloo, you know, as you watch it, you know, you have a sense of foreboding. You know that something terrible is going to happen. If you started with the event and then you flashed back, you would lose that sense of, you know, because I generally, my feeling is that I tell stories in cinematic terms not in real time, because they're not in real time, but certainly in progressive time, the way we experience life, you know, it moves forward in one direction. And that seems to me the natural way to tell the stories.
En Estados Unidos le preguntaron por qué no empiezas por la masacre en la película y después haces hacia atrás, ¿no? Lo que lleva a la masacre. Pero en Peterloo, a medida que ves la película, uno ya siente que algo va a pasar, ¿no? Vas imaginando que va a pasar algo, y generalmente en términos cinematográficos pues es más real hacerlo en el orden que...
Have you seen Topsy Turvy?
¿Has visto Topsy Turvy?
Well, Topsy Turvy actually employs a completely different device. It has flash forwards. Because what happens with Topsy Turvy is when Gilbert, the writer, thinks of the idea of the Mikado of the Japanese opera, he thinks of it, and immediately you cut to an extract from the opera before, and he's only just thought of it. He hasn't even introduced the idea to the composer, Sullivan, yet. And yet we see a bit, and gradually, as the idea develops, we keep seeing extracts from the finished opera, which of course doesn't make any sense at all logically, but it's the only way that you could see a substantial chunk of the opera without it all being piled up at the end, which would be tedious. So in fact what I do there, which is even less logical than flashbacks, is have flash forwards.
Hacer un flash forward, un flash hacia adelante. Es la única manera de no tener que estar aguantando toda la ópera para entender lo que pasa.
But I think the real truth is that each story, each film has its own needs and own requirements.
Cada película tiene sus propias necesidades y sus propios requisitos.
Una de las cosas que más llama la atención de su cine es los intérpretes.
One of the things that calls everybody's attention is the actors, the interpreters.
En Peterloo es admirable todo el trabajo que hay con los intérpretes, porque son gente que para mí son desconocidos dentro de su cine, los conozco poco, pero todos están en su justa medida. Así a grandes rasgos, ¿cómo trabaja con los actores para que estén tan bien?
They are not very well known here, he doesn't know them very well, but they are all in the right place and very timely. How do you work with actors in order to get the most out of them?
Well, that's a big question.
Es una pregunta muy grande.
It's a slow process.
Proceso lento.
First of all, what's important is that they're all very good actors.
Primero, todos son muy buenos actores.
They're intelligent actors.
Son inteligentes.
And not all actors are intelligent.
Y no todos los actores son inteligentes.
They are character actors, which is to say they are good at playing real people, not just themselves. They're not narcissistic.
Son acostumbrados a representar papeles reales, no son narcisistas.
All the actors in Peterloo are capable and enthusiastic about doing the research as well as just the acting.
Y son capaces y entusiastas y están dispuestos a hacer un poco de investigación además de actuar.
Research related to their character.
Comparación, o sea, relacionado con su personaje.
They're all actors. They're all professional actors. They have experience of film, television. Some of them are quite popular on television. Certainly, they've all got theatre. They're all theatre actors, and there are some radio actors who do radio drama as well.
Pues son actores acostumbrados a aparecer en películas, en televisión. Hay algunos muy buenos de teatro y también en programas de radio.
All the actors that play characters from the north, from the Manchester area, are all from that area,
y todos
from the
los
north.
que desempeñan un papel del norte de Manchester son de allí.
we spent, as we always do with these films, we spent 6 months in preparation.
Como siempre, pasan 6 meses preparándolo.
I always work individually with each actor first to get a character on the go, characterization on the go, which is quite a complicated process, and then people put them together and gradually build up the ensemble.
Individualmente trabaja con cada uno de los personajes durante mucho tiempo y esto da mucho trabajo y después lo une todo.
So the whole operation, apart from anything else, conspires to make everybody really secure
Es como una conspiración para que todo el mundo esté realmente muy seguro.
and know how to play their character and to be three-dimensional.
Y que sepan cómo desempeñar ese personaje tridimensionalmente.
¿Y en el trabajo ya elige al actor que va a hacer ese personaje?
Do you
¿O
already
ya lo tiene en mente?
choose the actor who is going to play that character, or you already have someone in mind?
Say it again.
Sí, piensa en un actor y dice, este actor va a hacer este personaje.
So you have one actor and you say he's going to play this character.
Well, in the case of Peterloo, there were a number of characters that were historical facts, and we had to find people to play those characters.
En el caso de Peterloo fue a buscar unos actores para desempeñar
Some characters.
algunos.
I mean, if you take, look, there's a group of 13 magistrates.
Hay 13 magistrados, ¿verdad?
Now, 4 or 5 of those are actual characters that really existed,
4 o 5 son personajes reales,
actual magistrates.
magistrados que existieron.
The rest are we've invented, but with a strong sense of who those people, what kind of people they were.
El resto los hemos inventado, pero bueno, con una idea sólida de qué tipo de personajes.
So I decided who should play those ones, and then there was a collection of guys who would be there to create characters.
O sea que decidió quién iba a hacer este personaje, estos 4 o 5 y después los otros. Una serie
And the same applies across the film, you know.
de costume.
Same principle applies across the film.
Hay todo este principio se aplica en toda la película.
¿Qué opinas sobre la erupción en el mundo del cine de las plataformas digitales? Entendido, ya sé que Peterloo ha participado en nuestros estudios, pero entendido como estrenos en exclusiva, no en cine, sino en ámbito doméstico. Y si considera que son una amenaza, una
What do you think about digital platforms? Do you consider them a threat, although he understands that Amazon has backed your movie?
Si es una amenaza o una salvación para el mundo del cine, para el futuro del
It's a
cine,
solution
o
for
ni
the
una cosa ni
future
la otra.
of the cinema? Or
The point is, it is the future of a way in which people will watch stories. That is a fact. It's here to stay, it won't go away, and that's a fact of life.
Bueno, la verdad es que es el futuro de una manera de ver el cine y está aquí para quedarse y no va a desaparecer.
But the question is whether we want cinemas to carry on existing, theatres, the movie-going experience, sitting in a communal space in the dark with a big screen, and the answer is yes, of course we do.
La pregunta es si queremos que continúen existiendo cines en los que uno puede estar sentado en la oscuridad disfrutando con otros espectadores de la película, pues claro que todos lo queremos eso.
One would hope that that streaming will not destroy this.
Esperemos que el streaming no destruya todo esto.
Amazon Studios, who backed, as you say, Peterloo, who did so with great support and never interfered with it, and gave us creative freedom, have also been very good at making sure that the film has a theatrical release around the world, and that's important before it has its streaming live.
Amazon Studios, que ha respaldado esta película, se ha asegurado también de que primero se estrenará en el cine, y eso es muy importante.
We know that Netflix has been, the behaviour of Netflix has been less perfect in this respect.
Y sabemos que Netflix se ha comportado menos perfectamente en este sentido.
You know, they put Roma took Roma out of cinemas far too soon, far sooner than they needed to. They did the same with the Ballad of Buster Scruggs of the Coen brothers,
Buster Scruggs, también.
which is a film. Both of those films are films that I like, by the way,
Son
incidentally.
películas que me han gustado.
But
Era la de los Coen, ¿no? Que aquí no ha tenido...
¿Cómo?
La de los Coen, ¿no?
Film.
And the Coen film.
Yeah, the Ballad of Buster Scruggs. That's what I said. Yeah.
Que aquí no, aquí cierra el festival.
Closes this festival.
Oh, is it this festival?
Film festival.
Good.
Aquí no se ha estrenado. en los
It
cines.
hasn't been a premiere here on the movies.
Oh, right.
yet.
There you go.
¿Esta? So your working methodology goes through different essays working with the actors before starting filming. In that time, do you also work in parallel with the photography directors and the team designing the production in order to give the visual style which is so needed in a specific...
Yes, of course. The preparation involves everybody parallel, and indeed the designers, the production designer, the costume designer, and the makeup designer work with me and with the actors, and everybody works together. And yeah, of course, we're all talking the same language.
A mí me interesa mucho sus referencias, tanto a nivel de cine, a nivel de literatura, a nivel de otras artes. ¿Podría decirme alguna o tiene, cuando está preparando una película, tiene algunas referencias cinematográficas literarias o simplemente trabaja en todo ese proceso con otros medios?
He's very interested in any historical reference that you might have when you're preparing your movies. Do you work based on some previous experiences or references, or do you work with other media?
I'm not quite sure what he means.
Sobre todo sus referencias, sus referencias tanto literarias, cinematográficas, eso es lo que me interesa.
Any literary or cinematographic reference that you might have?
Well, I mean, to be specific about Peterloo, of course, it involved a massive amount of research, and that research was into reports, newspapers, visual reference, speeches, and then also descriptions of how people lived. And in and amongst that, there are factual things, but also there are things in literature that are useful. I mean, so to some degree, reading Dickens is useful. To some degree, in terms of language, reading some of the plays of the period are useful. But it's all... I don't know whether you can know this expression, all grist to the mill. Does that mean anything to you? No, everything contributes.
Yeah. Es llover sobre mojado todo. Sí, para Peterloo hicimos una gran cantidad de investigación, claro, tuvieron que leer informes, periódicos, discursos, aspectos visuales, pero también un poquito la realidad a partir de la literatura, ¿no? Ayuda el haber leído a Dickens, obras de teatro de la época, pero bueno, es llover sobre el mojado todo esto, es más de lo mismo.
Also music. I mean, of course there are musical elements in the film.
Hay elementos musicales.
And we did a lot of musical research into the period as well.
Tuvimos que estudiar mucho la música de la época.
Ballads and so on.
En Peterloo los detalles son muy importantes en la película.
Details are very important in Peterloo, right? Play a very important.
Yes, but for me details...
You can smell the movie.
Good, because for me details are what it's... I make films about people doing what they do, living how they live. And, I hope you can always smell the world that I'm depicting. I hope so.
Sí, muy bien. La película está cargada de detalles, los detalles tienen mucha importancia. Siempre filmo a la gente haciendo lo que hace habitualmente y espero que siempre se pueda oler un poco la época al ver la película.
¿Tiene en marcha o en mente su próximo trabajo? ¿Cuál será su próximo trabajo?
Which is going to be your next movie?
Can't tell you about that.
No lo dices.
It isn't your business yet.
Todavía no te concierne, todavía.
¿Tiene alguna película de todas las películas de todos los trabajos que ha hecho, tanto en televisión como en cine, tiene alguna película que le tenga alguna relación personal muy profunda?
Out of all the movies that you have made and for TV and cinema, any movie that
por su situación personal, por lo que
especially dear to you
lo que
because
ayudó
of
la
your
película a
personal
su carrera.
situation or how much a specific movie contribute
el
to
proceso
your
creativo.
professional career, the creative process, any movie that you prefer.
Si tiene alguna así, ¿no?
If you have any.
No, I don't really have a preference. I mean, look, here's the thing. I mean, the great thing about the fantastic good luck and good fortune of my filmmaking careers and my 21 full-length films is that nobody's ever interfered with them, and I've done exactly what I wanted to do in every detail. Now, there are many film directors who don't like this film that they made or hate that film or can't watch this film, always because there's an aspect of it that it isn't what they wanted to do. Somebody made them change the end or have a different actor or something. I don't have that problem. My films are all, to me, like my children. Actually, I love them all, basically, you know. Fundamentally, I mean. So.
Pues no, tiene la muy buena suerte de haber hecho 21 películas sin que nadie interfiriera lo más mínimo. Muchos cineastas odian algunas películas por H por B, ¿no? Porque les han hecho cambiar algo, o les han hecho poner un final que no querían, o escoger otro actor, pero para él las películas son como sus hijos, los quiere a todos.
Last question for me, ¿no?
Yo era básicamente la misma pregunta, no sé si le verá un matiz, y era que era un juego, si imaginara que volviera a nacer, vuelva a ser director, pero solo puede elegir una película de las que ha hecho.
It's a similar question.
Sería?
If you were born again and you could only make one movie, which one would that be?
Napoleon, with Stanley Kubrick's script. I'm only joking.
Napoleón con el guión de Stanley Kubrick.
I don't know the answer to that. If I was, well, the question really, I thought you were going to ask me, if I may say so, a more interesting question. If I was born again now,
Si naciera de nuevo ahora, pensaba que
then of course, you know, the fact is I was born in the middle of World War II, and therefore I grew up in a post-war world, and all those things informed who I am and how I am and all the rest of it, you know.
Pero claro, nació después de la en medio de la Segunda Guerra Mundial y eso es lo que le ha hecho quien es.
Mr. Leigh, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.